In April of 2025, fandom member Karbol Toldya unveiled a website celebrating their all-time favorite character, Sunset Shimmer. The project, entitled My Past Is Not Today, is a collaborative art collection of 340 drawings of Sunset Shimmer by members all over the community, including several who came back to the fandom after being away from the community for years. The site went live to coincide with the 10th anniversary of the release of My Past Is Not Today, an animated music video featuring the character released following the success of 2014's Rainbow Rocks. Karbol says that video was the exact moment they decided that Sunset Shimmer was their favorite character. Based on the response they got from members of the community, Karbol is far from alone. I chose the title of this video because it sounded snappy, but I didn't expect the literally hundreds of people I asked to almost wholeheartedly agree that Sunset Shimmer is an incredibly relatable character. She's easy to root for, and a lot of her fans see part of themselves in her. One of those fans is my wife. She doesn't have an online presence like I do, but what she does have is 2 plushies, 3 shirts, and 15 pins of the girl in various places all over our house. She's become known at cons as the girl with all the sunset pins, so it's not hard to find her when we go to conventions. But it also made it kind of hard to pick apart Sunset Shimmer with an unbiased eye when I'm married to one of her biggest fans. Sunset Shimmer was created as the first antagonist for My Little Pony spin-off series Equestria Girls, which began in June of 2013 with a standalone film of the same name. The inciting incident of that film required a reason for Twilight to travel to the human world, so Sunset was created as the main antagonist. The production team mentioned in a commentary track that they made most of the Equestria Girls movies without the knowledge that there was going to be a sequel, so for her first outing, she comes across as a rather broad mean girl archetype, far from the complex character that would eventually be sculpted, but with enough venom and fiery attitude to take her seriously as a villain. Her design by the team behind Equestria Girls uses very bright, aggressive, warm colors for her hair and skin tones, and a riveted black leather jacket that conveys cool girl toughness. Her original t-shirt is a royal purple that she wears frequently in her wardrobe, and though context changes throughout the Equestria Girls franchise, it's used here to represent her detached, two-faced nature. It also sets up a row of analogous colors to match her namesake Sunset, which is a really nice touch. By the time Twilight arrives at Canterlot High School, Sunset has already cemented herself as the Queen Bee, with the entire student body under her thumb. We hear repeated mention of some horrible unnamed thing she did to a girl at the spring fling, and everyone we meet recoils at her presence. In an interview for the first Equestria Girls movie, writer Megan McCarthy mused that the closest thing the human world has to an actual villain is the classic high school mean girl archetype. Empathy is a learned trait, one we're taught as we grow up. Kids and teenagers don't develop empathy automatically, which is what makes them scary when they develop a mean streak. Unburdened by ideas of making friendship or understanding the struggles of others, she has no trouble whatsoever weaponizing gossip to break up the human versions of the main 6 to protect her hold over the school. That's a level of thorny vindictiveness that makes her a particularly nasty kind of evil. It's thematic then when Twilight reunites the gang and defeats her with the literal magic of friendship. After a satisfying Act 3 magic duel, a cratered and deflated Sunset Shimmer cries out that she didn't know that there was another way. To put a happy bow on the first film, Twilight's new human friends offer to teach her, and that's that. Except that it's not, because Equestria Girls ran on and off for a further 6 years. At this point, Megan McCarthy and her team were faced with an exciting proposition. Here was this fledgling spin-off franchise owned by a company that was demanding the first of several new projects in the same universe, and a team of talented creators that could do almost anything they wanted with the story they had spent the last year assembling for a toy market. The result, 2014's Rainbow Rocks, became a total overhaul of what was supposed to be a throwaway villain, that gave the head writer of a movie meant to sell toys the opportunity to give Sunset the full character treatment. People love a villain, but more than that, people love a redeemed villain. In that same interview, writer Megan McCarthy called the original Equestria Girls movie The Wizard of Oz in reverse. It could just be a throwaway comparison, but it's one I've been chewing on since I started rewatching the franchise. That movie, based on L. Frank Baum's 1900 novel, is about a girl from an ordinary town whipped up by magic and dropped into a fantasy world where she has to defeat an evil witch with control of the land in order to get home. Equestria Girls brings our heroine from her fantasy setting to a normal high school and has to take down her own magical villain to get back. It's a parallel that's even alluded to in her choice of dialogue.
Should've known Princess Celestia would send her prized pupil here after my crown. And her little dog, too.
Now that I think of it, Baum also had no intentions of pursuing the idea of the Wicked Witch as a heroine. It's a decision I respect from her creator, but which eventually proved to be fertile ground for storytelling in 2003 with the release of the Broadway adaptation Wicked, adding additional background and context to her role as the Wicked Witch of the West. It's also interesting to note that in both The Wizard of Oz and Equestria Girls, physical conflict turned out not to be the only solution to our heroine's problem. Sometimes it's the characters we didn't plan to expand that turn out to be the most dynamic and enjoyable to to watch. I asked my wife to put into words what endeared her to Sunset Shimmer, and the response I got was a relatively common one that Karbol also endorsed. In a world where people can be rather mean and unforgiving, it's very comforting to watch a character that can be good through honest effort, regardless of what they've done in the past. This idea that no one is beneath friendship if they ask for it resonates with a lot of people, and it makes for a really endearing character. Her entire through line in Rainbow Rocks is her realizing that she can be redeemed through her actions, and that resonates with audiences in a very real, earned way. Because the setting is the same from the first movie, it's much easier to sell the tenderness of how she treated the student body when she first came through the portal. As she helps prep for the school's musical showcase, she's bombarded by nasty glances from everyone she meets. The harm she caused in the first movie is real, and it doesn't go away with a simple roll of the credits. Sunset herself doesn't shy away from her past either. Accidental reminders of her old self are frequently met with a thorny recoil that feels really genuine. When Twilight returns from Equestria to help with the sirens, there's a very pregnant pause between the two before Twilight accepts her hand. This serves as an echo of the tender feelings from the first movie, but one that they both agree to move past. A direct continuation in this world makes her storyline more streamlined and easier to relate to. The structure and format of Equestria Girls as a franchise provides a lot of room to foster organic growth on Sunset's part as a character, and it offers up a lot of character building opportunities that are harder to come by in the core series. Sunset's redemption happens very early on. We get one movie with her as a villain, followed by 3 movies, 8 specials, and nearly 100 shorts of her as a hero, or as a neutral character just hanging out with her friends. That's a long time to integrate her into someone who you can buy as a person we can root for. Contrast this with someone from the core series like Trixie, Ponyville's resident magician and narcissist. In the original 65-episode series order for Friendship is Magic, Trixie has an introductory episode as the magician antagonist to Twilight Sparkle, and another appearance in Season 3's Magic Duel as a full-on villain. At the tail end of that episode, Trixie makes a last-minute plea for forgiveness that Twilight Sparkle accepts with some hesitancy, but that wasn't intended to be a setup for further Trixie episodes. When Magic Duel was written, the show had only been ordered through Season 3, and there was no intention of pursuing a series of episodes where she meets up with her girlfriend to practice magic, go on road trips, and take down a changeling hive. That was it. And even when the series continued, Trixie didn't re-enter the spotlight again until Season 6. Sunset, on the other hand, stayed in focus throughout Equestria Girls, long after she was no longer an active threat to the world, and gave us plenty of high and low stakes stories to get to know her. That's another leg up Equestria Girls has compared to Friendship is Magic when it comes to developing new main characters. Putting aside the larger, more serialized season premieres and season finales, Friendship is Magic is delivered in 22-minute episodes that were intended to be watched in half-hour chunks, in pretty much any order for ease of consumption on a TV network. Most episodes follow the same general structure: fade in on our characters, establish a storyline, follow a first, second, and third act, resolve the conflict, roll credits. It's a story structure that's satisfying on its own, but the conflict in Friendship is Magic is generally more story-driven, with the focus more on solving the problem of the episode than on the characters interacting, and it's uncommon to have scenes with characters that don't impact the plot. Equestria Girls, on the other hand, takes place almost exclusively in a high school setting, featuring more familiar, lower-stakes places than you would find in the world of Equestria, like a classroom or the mall. This, combined with the shorter specials and several dozen shorts that run only a couple minutes apiece, allows the stories it tells to be more character-focused. We, the audience, understand that nothing world-ending is going to happen in the space of 5 minutes. Because there are no expectations, we get to know Sunset and the girls as they do more mundane things, like take her driving exam, hang out at the beach, wait in line for a video game, play said video game, film stuff for her ponygram, and any number of other normal high school activities. In lower stakes settings, you really get to experience a lot of her finer, more subtle character traits. She likes expressing herself through art and music, and she loves video games, but she's also unsure of herself, hates being misunderstood, and loses her temper easily. A possible reflection of her lingering frustration at being human as opposed to the overpowered unicorn she was as Celestia's former pupil. She loves the thrill of big concerts, but she's also known to geek out about tiny technical details, loves working behind the scenes, and will wait hours in line for a game that her friends have no interest in but love her anyway for her passion. In Rainbow Rocks, the girls have an extremely normal slumber party, and there's a blink and you'll miss it reaction where Sunset is over the moon about getting to go to one. In the pre-franchise time she spent as Mean Girl in Charge, she probably never got invited to one, and it's a very cute detail that costs nothing to throw in. These two kinds of stories, story-driven and character-driven, don't represent a binary choice between one or the other. You could tell a story with elements of both in different combinations. I'm also not trying to claim that one of these is inherently better than the other. At the end of the day, it comes down to the kind of story you want to tell as a creator and what you're in the mood for as a viewer, but it's a decision of scope that does her character all kinds of favors. It's this laid-back style of storytelling in the back half of Equestria Girls that makes our understanding of her feel really genuine. It's interesting to compare this kind of character integration to her pony counterpart Starlight Glimmer, a similarly redeemed 7th Ranger who joined the group abruptly after her own isolated reign of terror in Friendship is Magic. I don't mean to turn this into a comparison between two fan-favorite characters, but one thing that I felt was holding Starlight Glimmer back was that because she was placed into the more story-driven setting of Friendship is Magic, it was a long time before we got to see her as part of the group in a setting where she wasn't the focus. The latter half of Friendship is Magic, similar to The Simpsons and other shows with large casts, made a habit of telling stories with only the characters necessary to move the plot along. Putting Your Hoof Down featured only 3 of the main 6 because it didn't require Twi, Shy, or AJ to tell that story. The same can be said of episodes like Appaloosa's Most Wanted, Dungeons and Discords, Hard to Say Anything, and The Mod Couple. Because of this, it was common not to include characters and stories that didn't warrant them, which means that characters that were added later on in the series run were often fighting for air on the page and had to wait their turn before we got to see them just exist without being overshadowed by the central conflict of the episode. At the top of Season 6, Starlight and Sunburst get to reconnect, but only around the chaos of Flurry Heart's crystalling. Several episodes later, she's used as a prop to address Twilight's perceived lack of forgiveness. 2 episodes after that, we get to see her vibe with the group during Hearthwarming Eve, where she was again overshadowed by the characters she and everyone else was playing during the show's retelling of A Christmas Carol. Depending on how you slice it, Starlight didn't get to interact in a small group setting until Every Little Thing She Does in the tail end of Season 6. This comparison is not at all intended to be a dunk on Starlight. She's interesting in her own right, and VA Kelly Sheridan gives a really unique performance. But the format and focus of a semi-rigid half-hour show like Friendship is Magic presents an extra barrier of entry that prevents us from really getting to know new characters that join later on. In the back half of the franchise, Sunset settles further into her hero role. This was cemented in the music video for My Past Is Not Today, a gorgeously animated sequence celebrating her new resolution to put her darker past behind her, the one that inspired the Sunset Shimmer project I mentioned in the intro. It's also the first appearance of her new default outfit, a teal undershirt that she wears under her jacket. Her hair was also desaturated slightly to match the change, as well as to reflect her more hopeful, less intense demeanor. She gets a pet to match her friends, a chill lizard dude she names Ray, as in her little ray of sunshine. I thought it was cute. And her magic was retroactively changed from green to red to match her new color-coded character status during her shiny new transformation sequence. The change was made for the special mirror magic, but I first noticed it in Forgotten Friendship when she takes Wallflower Blush's memory bullet for her friends who no longer remember her. Honestly, if you're looking for an example of Sunset's values, as well as how she's changed as a person over the series, Forgotten Friendship is a great example of everything she is and everything she stands for. The overarching story of the special involves Sunset working for the yearbook staff of Canterlot High, a duty she takes weirdly seriously. This dedication seemed like an interesting yet deliberate character trait for the story to give her. My read on it is that Sunset's relationships have been more dynamic than any other member of the cast. She began the series as a teenage tyrant with 2 subservient underlings but no real friends. Since turning her life around during the events of Rainbow Rocks, she gained a group of friends, but more importantly, an emotional support structure. She's grateful, but a part of her is afraid that friendship is still fleeting and that something could happen again to take it all away. The yearbook is a frozen snapshot in time, an immutable record of who we are in that moment. To Sunset, this record is incontrovertible proof that she had friends at one point, should anything happen to her. That something is Wallflower Blush, an unassuming high schooler with an affinity for her garden and the memorability of a houseplant. Empowered by the Memory Stone, a magical artifact that drops out of a rift to Equestria, she attempts to sabotage Sunset's good graces with a student body by erasing all of their good memories of her. The resulting mental backtracking leaves her socially isolated from her friends, ignoring all the good she currently does and drawing only from their remaining memories of her as a vindictive social monarch. This represents Sunset's greatest fear, being remembered for the worst thing you've ever done despite your efforts to be a good person. This is one of the few specials for which I could do an entire episode on its own. Haley and I have been married almost a decade, and we like to say that our relationships are not what we are, but what we consistently do. Emboldened by her desire to show her good nature, she intercepts Wallflower's attempts to completely wipe her friends' memories by giving up her own, showing them just how much they mean to her. It's that willingness to help others, as well as to extend a hand to a character who just wanted to be noticed, that represents the core tenet of Sunset's worldview. Empathy is the ability to relate to or understand what others are going through on an emotional level. To be empathetic is to understand the motivations behind another character's actions and to understand their thoughts and feelings. Like honesty, kindness, and the other established elements of harmony, early discussions surrounding Sunset Shimmer included theories as to what her element of harmony might be, throwing out words like forgiveness and redemption. The needle landed on empathy after the events of Legend of Everfree, when the magically charged geodes gave the girls superpowers, giving Sunset the ability to see the thoughts and feelings of anyone she touches. This was confirmed a month after the release of Legend of Everfree by Ishii Rudell, director of Equestria Girls movies 2, 3, 3 and 4, and assistant director Katrina Hadley referred to her superpowered visions as empathy flashes. I think it's a really cool visual representation of an emotional response that can be hard to grasp, though most of us internalize it as we grow up. It's that ability to relate to others that make her a great messenger in the Equestria Girls universe. Equestrian Twilight offers the magic of friendship to Sunset in the first film, she internalizes that desire to be good in Rainbow Rocks, and she completes the cycle in friendship games by passing that lesson on to human Twilight. This ability to empathize with the characters she meets is also why I like to call her the foil queen. In fiction, a foil is a character against whom other characters can be compared or contrasted to help accentuate and examine the ways in which they differ. Even before the series begins, Sunset is a foil to Twilight Sparkle. Both were students of Princess Celestia, but unlike Twilight, Sunset chose to focus on the attainment of power instead of friendship, leading her down a path to becoming the antagonist of the first movie. In Rainbow Rocks, both characters are under their own separate pressure to perform. Sunset and her desire not to be forever known as the school bully, and Twilight in her new role as Princess of Friendship. Sunset's past interest in magic as a power source allows her to empathize with Sci-Twi in the climax of friendship games. In Mirror Magic, she meets Starlight Glimmer, a character who previously had a different view over the ways in which friendship helped or failed them. Sunset was offered friendship after her mean girl empire crumbled, while Starlight contextualized her friend Sunburst getting his cutie mark as the world somehow ripping her best friend away from her, leading to the events of the cutie map. In Forgotten Friendship, we see the different yet similar ways that Sunset and Wallflower Blush responded to people's perceptions of them. Sunset fears that people will continue to hate her for something bad she did in the past, while Wallflower just wants to be seen and thought of at all. One of my favorite examples is a quick confrontation in Rainbow Rocks between Sunset and the Dazzlings.
You're never gonna get away with this.
Why? Because you didn't?
Though they represent the primary antagonists of the first two films, the Dazzlings are nothing more than power-hungry sirens, whereas Sunset asserts that she's a real person, able and willing to change. That's the most attractive quality Sunset Shimmer has as a character, and it's her willingness to grow internally as well as to inspire growth in others that makes her such a wildly popular character. Thanks so much for watching. A gigantic thanks to Karbol Toldya, a Sunset Shimmer superfan, for helping me polish parts of the script. The day this episode comes out, they're releasing another art collab around Equestria Girls that you can learn more about under the hashtag FriendshipGames2025. I was way overdue to talk about Equestria Girls, and this episode gave me a great excuse to binge the whole series again, which was a ton of fun. Until next time, I'm some horse on the internet. Thanks for watching.